Hey friends, welcome to the Art of Painting Furniture. All right, so today I'm gonna be doing some bar stools. Actually, I have two here, but I actually have three. And I found these in the attic when we were cleaning out our father-in-law's stuff. He recently passed away. But I thought, what a great way to actually, reuse, because I know he was a big repurposer. I mean, as us older generation or as mature generation, we like to salvage these things because they mean a lot to us, because they use them. But I don't really need bar stools in my home, but I thought these would make really great plant stands. And what I like about this is that I can customize them to any color that I want and kind of change it up and make it look really pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The first thing we're gonna do, of course, is inspect them, make sure there's nothing wrong with them. These are solid, they don't have any cracks. I suspect that they probably had 4 and one of them broke. That's why they were in the attic, because they had some new bar stools. But 3 is a good number, right? I like 3s because that's kind of like, you've ever heard the rules of 3s in decorating? 3s are just a good number. So I can stage these in a way and put my plants on them. I'm hoping that it turns out well and really make a pretty little accent in a certain area of my home. Or I can just use them one-on-one, whatever I want to do. And then if I have extra company coming over, because I have a very large bar, I could actually add more seating to my bar area or to my my island, so that we have more seating for the grandkids. So it's a win-win. So I can't wait to get started. So again, I've inspected these, they look great. Now let's talk a little bit about the pre-existing finish that's on here, because I'm not sure this is a factory finish. Let me show you up close what I'm seeing. It's very bizarre looking. It looks like someone actually attempted, and maybe my mother-in-law did, I really don't know, attempted to refinish these at one time, because it's not a varnish, it's more of like a water-based shiny finish or something on it. It looks like there was some stain, maybe done with a staining tool, something like that. I'm not really sure. That's kind of what it looks like. So instead of stripping this, because we're going to paint part of it, I'm going to paint like this part, and I've already sanded part of the legs. I've already gotten started. So what I'm going to do is give a raw wood finish to the legs and to the top of the seat, and then we're going to paint a cool color or different colors on each one of these on in the midsection here. And I think that just will kind of break it up and then still add a more modern touch to it. So I tested a little area on one of the others, and I tried to strip it with a paint stripper, and it didn't do too well. That just tells me, I can probably sand this off. And it's old and it's brittle. So I'm going to take a sander, and I took a, let's see, what did I use? I started with a 120 grit on my sander, ripped it down, and then after I ripped that off, and it come off really easy, after it's off, I'm going to go back with a 220 and then smooth it up. That'll get ready for the stain. Now, as far as the part that I'm going to paint, absolutely needs to be sanded. It just needs to be scuff sanded. You will not have to take this back to the wood if you're just going to paint it. You just need to scuff sand it. See how shiny this is? When you're painting a surface that's really, really shiny, things are not going to stick well. Even with a primer or a bonding agent, I just like to give it a quick scuff sanding, and then a good cleaning, of course, with a furniture cleaner. White lightning is what I typically use, any kind of TSP solution, and then rinse it with water, and then it's ready to paint. So let me go ahead and get my sander out. I'm going to show you, kind of demonstrate how I'm going to rip the top of this off and the legs, and we're going to clean it, and then I'm going to show you a cool way to actually stain this to where it actually accentuates the wood. The wood actually, it has a really pretty grain to it, but it's just kind of bland. When you sand it, it's just kind of whitish looking, and that's not really pretty. So we're going to use water-based products today, and I think you're going to enjoy this. So let me get my tool supplies together, and let's get started. All right, so I pulled out my Surf Prep sander. This is my favorite sander. You can use any sander you like. This is an industrial because I do so much furniture, so it's totally up to you. But you're gonna need a sander. You're gonna need an electric sander to rip down the old finish. It's just too hard to do by hand. Unless you're a superwoman, superman, go ahead. Be my guest. But I'm not. So 220, we're going to start, we're going to rip it off. Let me turn my vacuum on. This is actually a vacuum system because I'm doing it inside. I no longer work outside. It's just too hot or too cold. I am a fair weather flipper, I guess you would call that. So let me get this turned on. We're going to rip this off. And I like to rip off the finish and do, anytime I'm doing a paint and stain combo, I want to do the woodwork first and the stain and get that done. Then I do painting last. That's the way it works. It's also better because we're going to be cutting off this and we're going to be taping off this section and then we're going to be painting. So I want to get this finished first. That way I can tape this off, protect it, and then go ahead and paint the bottom section. Okay, I've got this ripped down, and let me correct myself. I said start with a 220. No, you finish with a 220. You want to rip with a 120. A 120. The higher the number, the lower the abrasive. So if you have 100 grit, that's going to be way more aggressive than a 220. Okay, so it's going to be smoother. So you want coarse. You want a coarse to rip it off. So anywhere from, I start anywhere, and depending on the finish, I start with an 80 down to a 120 for ripping, and then I go from like the 120 down to like a 220 to finish. I like to finish all my wood with a 220. That accepts stain and paint, and it just kind of closes the grain. So after sanding, what you need to go back after you've ripped it with a 120 is go back and sand it with a 220. Also, at this time, we need to sand down this area too, because see, it's shiny. You can still see the shiny on it. That shiny is not going to accept paint. You really need to scuff that up. So I'm going to take about a 220. This is a medium grit. I'm also going to use, I pulled out my padded because I'm having to go around some spindles. And let me just say, I hate spindles, but I'm going to give you a tip on painting them. That makes them so much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded down. Now you can see immediately, even after wiping off the dust, that, oh, here's some shiny right here. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Immediately you can see that shiny's gone. That's actually white. That's part of the wood that's sanded through. But go ahead and give it all a scuff sanding. Sand back over the wood to get it smooth. Then we're going to go back and clean it. And then we're going to start staining the wood before we actually go to the painting. All right, I've got the stools all cleaned, stripped, sanded. I went ahead and already stained the top of this one, and you can see the difference in the color is very, very subtle, but it's taking away this pinkish look on this wood. It's kind of got some pink in it. It's kind of neutralizing it out. And I also did it on the legs, and it's super easy to do. What I do is use a water-based gel stain. It's called Voodoo Gel Stain by Dixie Belle. I take it and then I take a piece of cheesecloth, I add a little bit on here, and then I saturate it with water. So what I'm doing is I'm diluting this color. It's actually like a wash. It's like a wash on top of wood. So, and then I just wipe over it just to give it a little bit of color. It's gonna be wet when it goes on, so the wood's gonna go darker, but as it dries, it will get a really pretty tone to it. And it actually makes all the little, the wood grain, it actually brings that out when you do this. So a little bit of Voodoo Gel Stain. This color is called Tobacco Road, which has kind of a brownish gray. This almost looks like a weathered look, and it's beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the rest of the legs, and then I'm gonna go over here and do it over on the top, and I'll show you the difference. All right, I got the Voodoo Gel Stain. Put a little bit on your cheesecloth or cotton cloth, cotton t-shirt, whatever you have. I just like to use cheesecloth. And then you're gonna take some water and you're gonna saturate this. Now you might wanna do a test piece just to make sure you get the color that you want. It's up to you. I mean, once it's on a porous raw wood, because it's water-based, it's not gonna sit on the top, it's gonna absorb. So you wanna make sure that you get the color right. I'm just kind of doing mine the way I like it. If this is rustic, it doesn't really matter to me if it's not exactly the same color, but just a little dab will do you. It doesn't take much if you're just doing a color wash. Then I'm gonna take it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and apply it over the legs. And again, remember we sanded this down. I'm gonna be putting a piece of tape over here after we get the legs and the top finished and get ready for paint. This is just a quick way to add just a little bit of color to your wood without having to do a whole lot of work to it. As it dries, it's gonna lighten and then it's gonna look more like these over here. All right, so I just did this one and this one's wet so you can see, but it's gonna dry. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I need a little more color to it. So you can layer this. Once it's dried, look at it. If you don't have enough on it, you can go back, do the same process again, put a little on your cloth, add a little water to it, dilute it down. I like to squish it in, just kind of mix it on your cloth and then go back over again and you can go back and add a little more color. You can see it's not a lot, still it has a lot of water to it. But that will give it that tone that you're looking for without, you know, putting a whole lot of color on it. So you can adjust it as you want. So start light and go darker and get the shade that you want. But be sure that you let it dry after you apply it before you apply the second coat, just to see if you can get the color that you want. Okay, now that we have everything stained, we're ready to go ahead and tape off for paint because we're going to be painting the midsection of these stools, and I've chose to not sand this part and go up above it because that's just too much. Painting is way easier than sanding on these spindles, and I'll show you a quick tip on painting those here in just a little bit. But we want to tape this off because I want this part raw wood and this part paint. So what I do is I go to the lowest footrest. This is like the footrest, and I take a piece of tape and then I put it, let me show you up close, right above this spindle. And you take it and then you wind it around until it meets itself. It should, and you may have to do it a couple of times, make sure that it is connected to the other piece and that it's all one line, just like this. So you pull it around and look at it, make sure that it's cohesive, that you got a smooth line. Go ahead and rub it really well. Make sure that your stain is dry on your wood, because if your wood is a little wet, it's damp, and the wood is absorbent, it absorbs wood, your tape is not gonna stick, and then you're gonna get some bleed underneath, so you don't want that. So make sure you let it dry good first before you do this next step anytime you're doing this. I just use one piece, longer than I need. I try to make it as level as I can. I don't pull out the level. I don't do any of that. I don't think it's worth it. And then just wrap it around. And then rub it good where you're going to seal it. And then we're ready for paint. All right, I'm going to give you an example of one that I've completed, and then we're going to go over how to paint this. But look how lovely this turned out. Isn't that beautiful? Now we're going to go over and we're going to paint these two, but we're going to do them in different colors. Strangely enough, and I don't know how this happens, but when I got dressed this morning, I just put on this color, and this is the color that we're going to be painting too. I guess it's my favorite colors. I love green. This one is called Cactus, and this is the Silk All-in-One Mineral Paint. When you're painting something like this, I do highly suggest that you do it all-in-one paint. There's several different brands out there. If Dixie Belle is not your brand, find one that you like and use it, because you don't have to worry about sealing this. Once you paint it, it dries, it's hard, it's durable, you don't have to do anything with it. So I gave it a good quick stir, a little shake, whatever your directions are on your bottle, and then we're going to paint. Now let's talk about the spindles. These are a pain in the rear. This is one of the reasons I hate painting chairs. This is not a chair, it's a stool, but it's the same thing. It still has these little cross pieces in here. So I always start with these first. Painting minimally, that means a small amount of paint on your brush is the way to go. Now, I like to use a smaller brush, especially for cutting in and getting in these little areas. You use whatever is comfortable, but you always want a good quality brush with fine bristles. You can see how pretty and soft these are. That makes the paint go on just perfectly. So just a small amount of paint, and we're going to start on these, and I'm just going to go sideways. And instead of going this way, I'm going this way, and I'm just going to work my way around it. You're going to find this is so much easier to do it this way. You may even start loving painting chairs. No, I still don't, but this is so much easier, and this is such a pretty color. Okay, make sure you get in here. Now, when you're painting next to your tape, I don't want you to paint up, because I don't want you to go up into it, because when we remove the tape, all this is going to be wood. Just paint sideways or go down, not up, because you're pushing that paint up into that tape. So go down or sideways. Just a really, really light coat. Turn it around and work on the other side until you get this one completed. See how much easier that is? Now, of course, there's another side to it, and that's the upside that you can't see. Instead of me getting down underneath there, you can turn it if you want and do this, but you can also wait until you finish it and then do the top. Flip it up like this, and then go ahead and finish that down there. So you can see that? Kind of an awkward position for the camera to catch, the video to catch all this, but you kind of get the drift of what you're going to be doing. Just make sure you get a good light coat on. This will probably cover in 2 coats. So we're going to do a really light coat over the whole piece. Let it dry. Go back and do a second coat, and then we'll remove the tape. So just want to continue painting. Remember, sideways or down, so you don't get up underneath. Don't want to get in there. You have to kind of get around these little edges. Okay, so I get this question all the time. Do you paint or do you complete the underside of your furniture or the backside? You know, I say it depends. I mean, some people are adamant and they say, no way would I ever leave a piece like that. I think it depends. It depends on if it's your piece and you're using it, or if you're trying to sell it. It's totally up to you, but I say it depends. And guess what? I'm not going to paint that. I'm not going to see it. So I'm not going to waste my paint on it. Like I said, again, it's totally up to you. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do anything. It's just how you choose to do it. You see how easy it is to paint these spindles when you use your brush back and forth like this. If you got a good quality paint, it levels itself. You're not going to see the brush marks. So you're going to be super happy with the results. Okay, I got 1 coat on, and let me tell you, I'm a pretty neat painter. I typically don't wear a lot of protective or gloves or stuff, but listen, when you're painting up inside chairs and on stools and spindles, you're going to get messy, so get ready to get some paint on you. Now, let's talk a little bit about this all-in-one paint. All brands are different, but make sure you read the manufacturer's suggestions on, you know, how long to wait in between coats. This one, it will be probably completely dry to the touch and not cool, because if you touch something, a paint that's dried, even though it feels dry on the surface, if it's cool to touch, it means it's not completely dry. Remember, paint dries from the outside in, so it needs to completely dry all the way on the inside. Because if you apply another coat on top of it, because it's a water base, that's gonna break down that paint. It's gonna reactivate it, and then it's gonna be a mess. So make sure you let it dry well. Also, this paint also says that it has a primer and a sealer. A primer meaning it gets the surface ready to accept the paint. Now, there's an exception. When you're painting darker colors, this paint I find works really good, and you don't really need like a primer to actually block stains like from wood tannins, because that could be the issue down here, you know, because we did paint a little bit over into the raw wood, so that means that those wood tannins will come bleeding through your paint. However, as long as you're using the darker colors and at least a black or no lighter than this color, you're not going to have that problem, or I have not had that problem. You may still. So if you're painting a white on this and you've gotten sanded down back to the wood and there's a couple of areas where you need to paint, you need to go in and put a blocker, a primer to block those wood tannins, because there's not enough in here that's going to block it. I'm just being totally honest with you. After you use a paint for a long time, you learn how it works. So yeah, this didn't need it, but I'm thinking about painting this one back here white. So we may have to do a little bit of little prep work down here before we actually paint it white. The rest of it's pretty good because it still has that finish on it. We just sanded it down just to get that shine off, that factory finish, just to kind of make it matte looking. So I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna come back and put 2 coats, and then we'll remove the tape, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start getting this ready for paint as well. Okay, so I'm painting the second coat, and anytime you're painting, you have long areas. You wanna make sure that you use long strokes. Put your paint on and then smooth it out. Just long, clean strokes. I see a lot of people painting like this. The problem with that is that you don't get that smooth finish. Now, if you want to put it on like this first, but you need to go back and finish it with a smooth stroke. And when it dries, this paint will be just as smooth as silk. All right, I want to go over this really quickly with you. Brushes. In between each coat, I do not leave my brush wet. I don't put it in a plastic baggie. I don't put it in the refrigerator. I don't do any of the things that a lot of other people do. I wash it out. I wash it out really good, and then I dry it as best I can. I have more than one brush, so when I go to put the second coat on, if this brush is not dry, I'm not going to use it. This is an all-in-one paint. It cannot be diluted in any way, and you don't want to start out with a wet brush. Dry brushes only when you're using the all-in-one paints. Let's go ahead and peel this off and see the clean line, and see if we get a clean line. We're hoping for it. We're hoping. Okay. I like to pull it off before the paint dries. Oh, that is perfection. You can't get a line any cleaner than that. So using that simple little tip to where you paint away from the tape, and then or paint sideways and don't paint up into the tape, will keep that from bleeding and give you that beautiful clean line every time. All right, let me show you the third and final bar stool that we're doing. Now, remember we sanded all of that down. I painted here, and typically I would paint the color here. Now, the color I chose for this one is the Silk Oyster, and it's light. You can see how light it is. It's kind of a really light, kind of a pale gray. What you want to do, because remember when we sanded up into here. That way I just covered all bases, and then we tape this off. Now, because there's raw wood like this up around here, when I put this white paint on, it's going to bleed. It's going to come through. I know it will. You might as well go ahead and just protect yourself now. Go ahead and get you a good stain blocking primer. I used what I had. Typically, I would paint this on, but I had this spray, this Kilt's original, and it is an oil-based primer. I typically don't use this on furniture. I actually have some other projects I'm using it, but it works. And it's oil-based primer, but when it dries, you can paint over it with water, with a water-based paint, so it's fine. So whatever you got to do, I took it outside, I covered all the areas I didn't want to get overspray on, and then I just sprayed the areas that had the wood that we sanded down to. The rest of it is fine. This actually isn't raw wood. This is actually like a whiter paint underneath, and then they put like a dark stain over it. I don't know. I think it will be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this, but I just wanted to show you that first. And again, we're going to start with a dry brush. I got another brush, and then we're going to go ahead and paint this exactly the same way. Okay, so I went ahead and painted 2 coats. of this light color on this bar stool, and I let it set overnight because I want it to dry, because you're gonna find out if there's a bleed through usually after it dries. And I went back and checked it, and you can see that it covered completely. So I'm really happy about this. Now, now that it's painted, let's talk about a sealer. You know, with the silk mineral paint, you don't have to put a sealer on it. It has all of that built in because that's the all-in-one paint. But because this is raw wood and we did stain it with a water-based stain, it still needs to be protected, because my plan is to actually use it as a plant stand. I'll use them also, you know, in my home when I have extra company coming and we need some extra bar stools around the island. But for this, I think just a wax would be perfect, because you can use wax over wood. You could also use a top coat that is like water resistant, and that would be gator hide. Gator hide is a good product. There's lots of products out there. You just have to kind of search for them. But for today, I'm gonna use something simple and easy. I'm gonna use an easy peasy spray wax. It just, yeah, it's a wax that actually comes in a bottle. It's liquid and it sprays, but it gives really good protection. Not as good as the paste wax, but I don't need a whole lot, but I just need a little bit of wax, because wax repels water. So if I accidentally have some water that gets on top of here, then I'm not too worried about it. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of finish you have on here. If you put a plant on here and you water it and it sets for a day, you're gonna have damage. There is no product out there that's gonna keep water for a day on a piece of furniture that's not gonna ruin the finish. So you have to be mindful of that, but I think I'm gonna use the wax. So here's the wax that I like to use. This is easy peasy spray wax. And when you say easy peasy, it's like the easiest thing ever. You can layer it in multiple coats. You'll do the first coat, you'll spray it on, let it set a few minutes, then I go back and wipe it off with a cotton cloth. I like old t-shirts are perfect for this. You know, I'm sure you probably got many of those in your closet. I typically like to use a white one. Dark ones sometimes will leave little fuzzies and stuff, especially when you have a lighter colored paint. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shake this well first, and I think that's the instructions. Yeah, shake well before use, okay? Make sure it's shake well. I like to test it before I actually spray it, because sometimes when you first hit that button, a little spit comes out, and that's not pretty on your furniture. So you wanna hold it about 6 to 8 inches away, and you wanna spray. Now, I'm gonna spray all of this, and I'm also gonna spray the paint. It's not gonna hurt it, and this way I don't have to cover it up. It's actually gonna give it an extra layer of protection, so it's okay. So I'm gonna spray everything, and be mindful again to spray it like 6 inches away. Just keep turning it. Be sure to get the edges, the legs. And you'll see that it looks damp. It's not wet. It should not run. So again, just a fine mist spray. You probably have to get back underneath these legs here to make sure they get covered. I think I missed some here. You can actually see it. And it will darken the wood just slightly while it's wet. Again, when it dries, it's gonna be back to the finish that you started with. This is one of my favorite. I don't use this a lot, but probably should use it more often. Now, is it as durable? No, it's not, but it's a great option for something, you know, some home decor that you don't use a whole lot. I think I got everything. Just want to make sure I get all up in there. And if you overspray it and you do get a drip, it's not a problem. Not a problem at all. I think I've got everything. Okay. I'm gonna let this set a few minutes and kind of let it soak in. Remember, these paints are porous, especially the wood is porous, so it's gonna soak in. It's gonna give it a layer of protection, so I like to do this. Now, for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and start buffing this back. It is still wet. I don't recommend that you let it dry on top of it because I feel like it may make it blotchy looking, and I want it really smooth. So you can just rub it in, super easy. Rub all these areas here. And for the spindles, you can take them and kind of rub back and forth and get it all on those difficult areas. Rub it completely until you get it all buffed off. Let it dry. Give it 30 minutes or so. It's gonna dry really quickly. Then you can go back and put a second coat on it and even a third coat. I typically do 2 coats. I think that's enough, but it's totally up to you. And it gives it that silky feeling that I love, that only wax can give. And it just is a nice finish. It will give like a matte, I guess more of a satin finish because it have a tiny bit of sheen, but not much, but it won't be as matte as the silk paint is. And I think that just gives it a beautiful finish. Hey, thanks for joining me in the art of painting furniture with this bar stool makeover. I think you'll find that this is such a classic look that you can apply to any furniture, any wood furniture that you have, the same products, or you can even venture out and try some of the products that you have. You don't have to use the products that are listed today. However, I'm going to list some of the options below in the products list so that you can find what I use here if you choose to use those. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me get you some photos on how I'm gonna style these in my home, and I will see you in the next video. Happy painting.